Today we're working on a 2007 Lexus GX470. I'm going to be doing the rear discs on this one. So to start, you're going to take, after you take the wheel off, there's going to be two 17mm bolts holding on the caliper. We're going to get those off with a breaker bar. Same with the bottom one here. Once you've broken those loose, you can just run them out. Sliding pin should pull out. Those will need to be re-greased. Once both sliding pins are out, the caliper should wiggle free. Might take a little bit of suggesting there. Once you have the caliper off, you can kind of set that to the side. And now we can focus on the two 17mm bolts that are holding on the caliper bracket. One right here and one right here. We're gonna do that same process. Probably gonna need to switch back to a breaker bar to get them loose as well. And then run those out with a socket wrench. Keep in mind that these have a washer on them when these 17mm bolts come off to take off that caliper bracket. On this instance, the washer was just stuck to the back of this brake dust plate here. You're gonna wanna make sure that those come off and go back on with those washers. We can take a look at the pads here now. We can see that those are definitely at the end of their life. And we can go ahead and take this whole bracket off. Now to get off the rotor, this has a built-in parking brake that uses the center of the rotor as a drum. So it does take some wiggling and jiggling. Make sure your parking brake is not set and you'll be able to pull that rotor off. Before you put the new rotor on, make sure to give it a good, nice coating of brake clean on both sides, as these come with a layer of oil on them to keep them from rusting. So this just gets that layer off. Those shoes have plenty of life left in them, so we're going to keep those and just put a new rotors and pads on. Once you get it on there, as you can see, I got it nice and greased up again from my hand, so I'm gonna give it another little spray down. Before you push the piston back in, make sure you open the reservoir for brake fluid and just kind of leave it open so that way the fluid can come back in without any pressure. Now we're going to push the piston back in. Try to get this set up. But basically, we're going to take an old brake pad and we're going to put it up against here. And then we're going to take our tool to push this back in. So, have the piston tool extended out. Slide it in between the pad and the caliper. And then you're just going to start to tighten it. And as you tighten, it will slowly push this piston back in. And the reason why we want to use a pad there is so we don't push the piston in too far. It will be like a stop for us. So the old pads just simply push right off. Be mindful that there's a little tab that needs to be put on the new ones. So for example, all the pads came without any indicator of which direction they'd go on, but they did come with hardware that is directional. So one thing you have to be mindful of is which direction, or I'm sorry, which one you took off. So the one that goes against the sliding pins, so not, this is the front, this would be the back. This has a directional piece that you'll need to reinstall on the new pad. So it just pushes right on one of the tabs that hold them into the caliper, but you'll just want to double check that you're putting them on in the right orientation, as this one will want to go in the back. And then you're going to want to push off all of this hardware, that old hardware, and put the new one in. Again, just being mindful of the direction that they came off and making sure that when you put the new hardware on that it matches the same orientation. So once you have them all on, it should look pretty similar to this. You'll notice that this one here has a gap there. You have to kind of push those down with a screwdriver to get them flat. But ultimately, you'll see that they're directional on both sides, as this flared out end is going to go on the outside, where the inside is going to be just more of a smaller clip. And then push these in with like a screwdriver or something to get those flush. So now that we've got them flush, we're just going to put a little bit of grease on where the little tabs will sit. And then we will make sure that the pad with the actual stop piece is going on the back. So we're going to slide this one in on the back side. Once we get that one slid in, we will slide this one on the other side. Just push them down until they go into place. Once you have them installed, try to keep them as far away from the inside as possible, just right on the edges. That way they'll slip over the new rotor. And next, we need to take the sliding pins and lube them up really well before we slip them back in to the sliding pin positions here. What I typically do is lube it up pretty good and then slide it in and kind of move it around and then pull it back out. And if it took all of my grease, I'll put just a little extra on there before putting it back in. Once you have the inside of the caliper greased up pretty good, you'll take the pins back out. That way you can install the caliper bracket back on to the hub here. So you'll just slide it over, get one of the bolts worked, and you can start working the other bolt in. We'll just hand tighten those all the way down before actually torquing them. Once you have those torqued down, you're going to want to squeeze the pads to where they're touching the rotor. That way you can slide your caliper over the top of everything. Mine was just being a little stubborn, but once you get one bite on it, it should slide in. And then we can take our greased up pins and start feeding those in. And just be mindful of this little rubber cap that likes to come off here. Once you have that done, you're ready to put the wheels and tires back on, and just make sure you put the brake cap back on. You're good to go.